She disappeared. But the conversations in your head didn't stop. In fact, they only got louder, replaying every moment, every word, searching for the exact second you became invisible to her. She disappeared. But the conversations in your head didn't. You are not haunted by her. You are haunted by the questions she left behind. The echoes in a room she has long since abandoned. The initial shock of abandonment feels like a phantom limb. You can still feel its presence, the weight of it in a room, the warmth where a hand used to rest on your arm. Yet when you reach for it, instinctually, there is nothing but cold, empty air. This feeling is more than simple heartbreak. It is a profound violation, a tearing not just of a connection, but of a fundamental human need. The researcher Brené Brown defines belonging as an innate, primal desire to be part of something larger than ourselves, to be held in a web of connection that confirms our place in the world. When someone vanishes without a word, they don't just leave a space in your life. They detonate a silent bomb in your personal narrative, leaving behind a crater of perceived unworthiness. Into this crater rushes a flood of obsessive thoughts. These thoughts are not a sign of weakness. They are not evidence that you are crazy for caring so much. As the physician Gabor Mate might observe, this reaction is not a flaw in your character. It is a trauma response. Your brain, in its desperate attempt to protect you from the unbearable pain of feeling completely erased, goes into overdrive. It frantically tries to solve the riddle of why. It believes that if it can just find a reason, any reason at all, even one that places the full weight of blame on your own shoulders, it can restore a sense of order to the chaos. This is a survival mechanism. Blaming yourself feels safer than accepting the terrifying randomness of being discarded. The endless conversations that now occupy your mind are not a dialogue with her. They are your mind's frantic, failed attempt to stitch a wound that was never meant to be cleanly closed. They are the sound of you trying to solve the equation of your own value, with the main variable missing. This is the first stage of the haunting, where the mind ceases to be a sanctuary of memories and becomes a cold, sterile crime scene. The past is no longer a place you visit for comfort. It is a room you are locked inside, forced to examine every detail under a harsh, interrogating light. You are not remembering, you are investigating. You scroll back through old messages, not to relive a happy moment, but to dust for fingerprints on her words, searching for a shift in tone, a hesitation, a promise that was subtly broken. You analyze photographs not for the smile on your face, but for the look in her eyes, trying to pinpoint the exact millisecond the light went out. Every interaction is now evidence. Every shared silence, once a sign of comfort, is now a potential motive. You are convinced you missed the clue, the single critical piece of information that would have prevented the entire loss. It is like being the lead detective in a film where you are the only suspect, and the victim is your own sense of self-worth. You sit in the dark, the phone in your hand, re-watching the footage of your time together, frame by painful frame. You tell yourself that if you just look closer, if you just analyze it one more time from a different angle, you will find it. The word you should not have said. The need you should not have shown. The moment your performance of being enough faltered, revealing the flawed person underneath. This endless investigation feels purposeful, like you are actively working towards a solution, but it offers no answers. It only serves to re-inflict the wound over and over, because the search is not for truth. The search is for a reason to blame yourself. It is a desperate attempt to find a logical explanation for an emotional abandonment, a way to believe that you had some control over a situation that left you feeling completely powerless. But there is no clue to find. There was no single mistake. You are investigating a crime that never had a culprit, only a casualty. The silence she left behind is not an empty space. You feel it as a living presence, a heavy blanket that smothers all other sounds. It is an echo chamber, perfectly engineered to amplify the quietest, oldest whisper inside of you. It is the voice that has always been there, long before you met her, the one that has been the soundtrack to your most private moments of doubt. The voice that says, "You are not enough." Her disappearance did not create this feeling of inadequacy. It merely gave it a loudspeaker. Her silence became the ultimate, irrefutable proof for your deepest, most foundational fear. This is why the pain feels so bottomless, so disproportionate to the time you even knew her. You are not just reacting to her absence. You are reacting to every past moment you felt unseen, unheard, or chosen last. Her ghost is now holding hands with all the other ghosts of your past. Imagine standing at the edge of a vast canyon, the one she carved inside of you when she left. You shout into it, needing to hear something, anything, to prove you still exist. You expect to hear an echo of your own voice, a confirmation of your own sound. Instead, the only thing that comes back is a chorus of every person who ever made you feel small. Their names ride the wind, one after another, starting with hers, but reaching back into the cold rooms of your childhood, back to the moments when you learned that love was conditional and that your needs were an inconvenience. This is why it hurts so much more than it should. It is not one wound. It is all of them, torn open at once by a single silent act of departure. You are not mourning the loss of a future with her. You are mourning the confirmation of a past you have been trying to outrun your entire life. Her leaving wasn't the cause of the disease. It was just the final, definitive diagnosis. Here lies the most painful truth, the one the mind works so hard to avoid. The person you are having these endless conversations with does not exist. Not anymore. The real person is out in the world, living their life, their thoughts miles away from you. The one you engage with day after day is a ghost. It is a fictional avatar that you have painstakingly constructed from memory, hope, and 1,000 unanswered questions. You have built this ghost out of the echo of her laugh, the cadence of her voice on a good day, and the imagined weight of her conscience. This projection is not her. It is a version of her that is still capable of being reached, of feeling remorse, of finally understanding. It is a character that remains a participant in your story because the thought of her being completely indifferent, of there being no story at all, is an agony too profound to bear. This is why you have those conversations in the shower, in the car, in the dead of night. You craft the perfect, devastatingly articulate message in your mind, the one that lays out your pain with such clarity that she would have no choice but to see the damage she caused. You rehearse it, refine it, feeling the satisfying burn of every well-chosen word. You imagine her reading it, the flicker of regret in her eyes. The entire conversation, with all its drama and catharsis, happens entirely within you, with a character you wrote. You argue with this ghost because it is less painful than admitting you are screaming into a void. It creates a target for your anger, your love, your confusion. Fighting with a phantom is an exhausting, soul-crushing endeavor, but it feels like connection. It is a fiction you keep alive because it allows you to postpone the ultimate heartbreak. The moment you have to accept that you are truly, completely alone in the room with your pain. The obsessive thinking, the endless replays, the arguments with a ghost. It all feels like productive work, feels active. In the face of a situation where you were rendered completely powerless, this internal churn creates a powerful illusion that you are doing something to solve the problem of your pain. Your mind has been given an impossible task, to make sense of the senseless, and it works tirelessly, believing that with enough effort, it can find a solution. This is why you choose it day after day. It feels like you are holding onto the controls, steering your way through the wreckage. Letting go, by contrast, feels like surrender. It feels passive, like admitting defeat. It feels like letting her get away with it, like allowing the story to end on a note of injustice. So you choose the familiar agony of the loop because it feels like you are still in the fight. It is like trying to navigate your way out of a dark, dense forest at midnight, using only a map you drew from memory before you got lost. The act of holding the map, of tracing the faint lines with your finger, of planning your route, it feels purposeful. It feels like you are making progress, like you have a strategy. You can spend hours staring at it, convincing yourself that you see a familiar landmark, that you are on the right path. But the map is a fiction. It is useless, and every moment you spend consulting it, every step you take based on its flawed directions, only leads you deeper into the woods, further away from the light. Ruminating is not healing. It is the act of staying busy inside your own prison. It provides the counterfeit comfort of activity to distract from the terrifying stillness of your powerlessness. It is safer to feel the familiar pain of walking in circles than to stand still, look up at the endless trees, and admit the truth. You are lost, and the map you are clinging to is the very thing keeping you there. Every cycle of rumination, every hour spent investigating the past, is fueled by a single toxic ingredient: hope. But this is not the healthy, life-affirming kind of hope that inspires growth. This is a corrosive hope, the kind that keeps you chained to a past that no longer exists. It is the constant, gnawing whisper of what if? What if she comes back? What if she just needed space and will text you tomorrow? What if this was all a terrible misunderstanding that one good conversation could fix? This hope feels like a lifeline, the only thing keeping your head above the dark water of finality. It feels like the one thing you must not let go of, because to let go of hope is to accept that it is truly over. And your system is not yet ready for that truth. It feels like a death. But here is the truth that must be faced. This hope is not a lifeline. It is the bars of your emotional cage. It is what keeps you trapped in the waiting room of your life, obsessively checking the door for someone who will never walk through it. It is the very thing that prevents healing. You are standing at a desolate, abandoned train station, waiting for a train that was decommissioned years ago. The paint on the benches is peeling. Weeds grow up through cracks in the platform. The tracks are covered in rust. Other trains to new places, new experiences, new versions of yourself, are still arriving and departing from other platforms, their whistles blowing in the distance. But you do not hear them. You cannot even see them, because your entire focus, your entire being, is chained to this one empty track. Your hope is tied to the ghost train that will never arrive. The most courageous act is not to keep hoping against all evidence. It is to finally find the strength to pick up your bag, turn away from the empty track, and walk out of the station. The freedom you seek is not on the train. It is in the act of leaving the platform. You did not just lose her. The loss feels deeper, more fundamental than that. You lost the version of yourself that was reflected back to you in her eyes. For many people, especially those whose history taught them that love is earned through performance, a significant relationship functions as a mirror. It is the surface off which you bounce your identity, the gaze that confirms your worth, your desirability, your very existence. You come to know the sound of your own laugh by the way she smiled at it. You come to believe you are interesting by the way she listened. Her presence provided the steady, validating reflection that told you who you were. And when that mirror is suddenly and violently taken away, you are not just left alone. You are left without a clear image of yourself. The panic that sets in is not just loneliness. It is identity collapse. It feels like waking up one morning and looking in the mirror to see nothing but a blurry, unrecognizable outline. You know you are there, somewhere in the fog, but you can no longer see your own face. The features are indistinct, the expression unreadable. Her validation was what brought your image into focus. Without it, you are left in a terrifying state of formlessness, desperately scrambling to feel the edges of who you are. The panic is existential. It's the dizzying sensation of not recognizing the person who inhabits your own skin. This is why the rumination is so frantic. You are not just replaying memories of her. You are searching for clues about yourself. You are trying to piece together an image of who you were from the shattered fragments of that broken mirror, hoping that if you can just assemble them in the right order, you might catch a glimpse of your own face again. The desperation is not just to get her back, but to get yourself back. This is the core of the psychological mechanism, the quiet alchemy of your pain. Her action, the silence, the disappearance, the final cold message was a definitive statement. It was an ending, In the grammar of your shared story, her departure was a period. It may have been brutal, it may have been cowardly, it may have left 1,000 things unsaid, but it was unambiguous in its finality. It was a closed door, a finished sentence. There was no room left for interpretation. Her action was, in its own way, a complete answer. The answer was no, but your pain, your mind, your shattered sense of self, it cannot accept that finality. In a desperate act of emotional self-preservation, it performs a kind of grammatical trick. It refuses to read the period. Instead, it takes that small, hard stop and stretches it, twists it, and carves it into the elegant, looping shape of a question mark. It manufactures uncertainty where there is none, creates an endless, agonizing, open-ended sentence that you then force yourself to read over and over, day after day. She sent the final, cold, one-word text. That was the period. You, however, have spent months analyzing the punctuation. You have examined the timestamp, the choice of word, the lack of an emoji, searching for a hidden meaning, a secret code, a sliver of doubt that would suggest the door is still unlocked. You are trying to find a hidden question in her definitive answer. The suffering continues not because of what she did, but because you refuse to read the last sentence as it was written. You have chosen to live inside the question mark because the finality of the period is simply too much to bear. And here is the turn. Here is the truth concealed beneath every other layer of pain. The deep, gnawing, obsessive need for one more conversation, for that final moment of closure, for a clear and satisfying explanation. It is not about her. It is, and always has been, a projection. The intense craving to make her understand is a displaced need to understand yourself. The person you are truly trying to have this unfinished conversation with is the part of you that believes you are disposable. It is the part of you that learned, long ago, to be quiet, to wait, to accept whatever love was offered, no matter how conditional. It is the part of you that believes you deserve to be abandoned. You are trying to get her to tell you that you are worthy, that you mattered, that you were seen, because you have not yet learned how to say these things to yourself and truly believe them. Her validation became a substitute for your own self-worth, and now that it's gone, you are in a state of profound withdrawal. You keep writing a long, desperate letter in your mind, a letter addressed to her. You pour into it all your pain, your confusion, your anger, your pleading. You detail every injustice, every fond memory, every broken promise. You write and rewrite it, hoping to find the perfect combination of words that will finally unlock her compassion. But the healing can only begin when you are finally able to see the letter for what it is. It is not an appeal to her. It is a testimony from a wounded part of yourself. The moment of change comes when you can mentally pick up that pen, cross out her name at the top of the page, and write your own. The letter was always for you. You were the only one who ever needed to read it. The closure you are seeking cannot be granted by the person who left. It can only be found in the moment you turn to face the part of you who stayed. Her departure left a vast, empty stage in your mind. This was the stage where the entire drama of your relationship used to play out, day after day, act after act. In the immediate aftermath, that stage is not truly empty. It is haunted. It is occupied by the ghosts of old conversations, by the endless, frantic replays of your mental crime scene investigation. The stage lights are dim, casting long, distorted shadows, and the only play being performed is a tragedy, on a loop. You are its sole audience member, sitting in the dark, watching the same painful scenes unfold, night after night. You know every line by heart. You know every cue for the pain to arrive. And you keep watching because you don't know what else to do once the play is over. But this final reframing is an invitation. It is a quiet suggestion to see the space not as a haunted theater, but simply as an open one. The ghosts only have power as long as you remain in the audience, giving them your attention. The silence is only terrifying as long as you are waiting for her to speak her next line. What if you chose to see it differently? The stage lights have gone dark on that old play. The curtain has fallen. You can either stay in your seat forever, staring at the empty, dusty set, or you can find the quiet courage to stand up, walk down the aisle, and step onto the stage yourself. You can turn on a single, solitary spotlight, illuminating just you in the center of that vast emptiness. And there, in the quiet, you can begin a new monologue. Not for her, not for an audience, but for yourself. It may begin with a whisper. It may not have a plot yet, but it is the first time in a long time that the words spoken in that space will be your own. The path out of this labyrinth of rumination is not about finding the answer to the question of why she left. You could search for a lifetime and never find it. And even if you did, it would not be the cure you believe it to be. It would not heal the wound. The real journey, the only one that leads to solid ground, is turning inward to understand why her absence had the power to dismantle you so completely. It is about understanding the architecture of your own belonging. The researcher Brené Brown teaches that true belonging is not something we negotiate or beg for from others. It is a spiritual practice of standing on our own, and it never asks us to betray ourselves for the sake of connection. You felt so profoundly abandoned because the connection was conditional. It required you to perform, to be a certain way, to silence the parts of you that might be inconvenient. The great psychoanalyst Carl Jung would argue that her disappearance served a purpose, albeit a brutal one. It was a catalyst that forced you to finally confront your shadow, the rejected, exiled, and seemingly unworthy part of yourself that you have spent a lifetime trying to hide, both from others and from yourself. The endless, looping conversations in your head are not a symptom of madness. They are the desperate pleas of that shadow, begging to finally be seen, to be heard, to be acknowledged by you. The work, then, is not to silence the ghost in your head. It is not to find a way to forget her. The work is to turn around, in the quiet of your own mind, and finally listen to what that pained voice has been trying to tell you all along about your oldest wounds. Healing does not come from silencing it. It comes from integrating it, from bringing that abandoned part of you back home into a stronger, more honest, and more whole version of yourself. If you are still trapped in these conversations, it is not because you are broken. It is because the exit is hidden and you were never given a map to find it. This wound, this deep echo of abandonment, is not your identity. But the healing, that is a different conversation, and it happens elsewhere. We begin that journey on the other side. We have created a short, unflinching guide to understanding the nature of these internal conversations. It will not offer you an escape, but it will help you name the ghost you have been arguing with. It is an honest first step. It is free. The link is in the description below.